The price tag for college is quickly becoming one of the top concerns for undergraduates, especially with student loan payments set to resume. The Princeton Review's annual breakdown for best colleges gave the #1 spot for financial aid to Washington University in St. Louis and found the top 10 list this year awarded an average of more than $45,000 in need-based scholarships. Robert Franek, the Princeton Review editor-in-chief, joins me now to break all of this down. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So talk about these colleges that made up that, especially that top list when it comes to financial aid. What are they doing right?
Yeah, Rachelle, I'm so grateful for the time, and it's such an important question to ask, because financial aid is on the minds of college-bound students, their parents, counselors helping them along the way, all that specter and nervousness around paying for college. We came up with this list based on student opinion, students who are current college students answering questions about their satisfaction with their financial aid package. As you noted, Washington University of St. Louis, been on this list before, back in the #1 spot. But when you think about it, their sticker cost is a little over $83,000, but their average gift aid, this is money that students don't have to pay back, this is grant aid, is a little over $58,000. So bringing the out-of-pocket cost on average for most students at WashU to about $25,000.
And how are some of these colleges able to provide so much financial aid versus, some of the names that you see at the top here aren't necessarily Ivy League schools or schools that everyone, that are internationally known. How are they able to do this?
Yeah, it's an important question to ask, and there's simply differences in the financial wherewithal for schools. You're right, big brand name schools, Ivies and near Ivies might be top of mind for students and parents, but some of them certainly will have great financial wherewithal, but it doesn't preclude all of these other schools, nearly 3,000 of them in the states alone, from having deep pockets from a financial aid perspective. The difference with these schools on the list is that they are channeling those dollars specifically towards financial aid for students. So what I tell all my students at Princeton Review is never think about sticker costs. Don't have that shock that so many people, just being human, will have when they face a sticker cost of $84,000 or more, but focus on how much money you're actually getting when it comes to out-of-pocket costs, because schools can be very aggressive about offsetting that sticker cost with something that might be more palatable for students and parents across the planet.
And what about some of the schools that are the worst when it comes to financial aid, or the stingiest, shall we say?
Yeah, well, there are certainly schools that are better than not around financial aid. There are some usual suspects that we just want students to focus on, and to focus on specific data points from those schools. What is the average gift aid, not only for a first-year student, but that you can count on 3 or 4 years at college or university? Those are the things that we focus on, as well as how much indebtedness are students actually graduating with. Now, students and parents might be surprised at this, but about $30,000 is the average indebtedness that most students will graduate with, and that number is just from May of 2023. Some students and parents might assume that it's much loftier because we talk about this stuff all the time. Students that have ballooning debt, the most crushing of those stories, students that have ballooning debt but didn't actually graduate from college or university. Those are some of the points I would suggest taking a peek at.
And as we look at some of the issues that came up in terms of the most important answers to the survey, academics, of course, makes sense, 97%. Financial aid, though, coming in at 72%, and then followed by career services. So talk about some of the top 3 concerns people have, and as they're trying to weigh them, especially things like career services, what sort of return on investment do you get for a school that really does thrive when it comes to things like career services?
We talk about fit often at Princeton Review, and we talk about it in 4 different categories. Certainly, as you pointed out, an academic fit. We want to make sure that students are challenged and engaged in the classroom. Number 2, campus culture. Are you going to be happy not only academically, but outside the classroom as well? Number 3 is financially, of course, as you had noted, but number 4, career services. And I cannot overstate this enough. When we think about career services, and as you noted, what is going to be the return on your academic investment if you're a student, as well as your financial investment if you're a student in a family? I visit more college campuses than I'm convinced any other person on the planet. But if I'm not hearing in the first 4 or 5 minutes that I'm on a college campus about the career service or career development office, how it's affecting not only a senior, but a first-year student through their senior year, then I'm suspect. And those are things that students should be thinking about now, along with their parents and their counselors as well. What are students doing by way of internships and cooperative experiences and experiential learning? And the nomenclature, as you know, changes from school to school, but it all means the same thing. What are students doing outside the classroom to complement what they're learning inside the classroom? And is that lofting them on to a career of substance upon graduation?
And obviously, we've been through a lot, and college students have been through a lot because of COVID. How much has the list changed pre-COVID versus post-COVID, when now they have even more options for funding, whether it's private or public or other kinds of financial aid?
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you brought up the question. Some things have stayed eerily similar, right? Just thinking about the big bucket number, the $174 billion that is available for aid. That ratcheted up during COVID, and it's now leveled off to a pre-pandemic number, about 74 billion. 174 billion. About 74 billion of that comes directly from grant aid, directly from schools. So to your point, when we start thinking about the money that most students are going to use for college, the first bucket of spending will be those dollars that the school is giving them, not by way of loans, but by way of grants, money that students don't have to pay back. And there are basically two factors that are triggering those dollars, right? It's how well a student does academically at school, the rigor of your courses, but then tying that, even in our post-COVID world, with SAT and ACT scores, thinking about that test optional movement and students still submitting those test scores to qualify not only for academic admission, but scholarship dollars as well.
And so for the parents out there or the prospective students out there, when they're trying to figure out their school, what would you say is the top tip when really trying to figure out the finances when you obviously you have your potential dream career, and then the sticker shock just sort of, it sinks into your heart. It's like, I can't possibly afford this. What would be your top tip for them?
Top tip is, number one, when you're thinking about schools, never, never, never cross an expensive school off of your list, particularly early on in the process. But then the second step is, you must dig down into the homework. And this is stuff that I'm very proud that we do at Princeton Review. How much is that school aggressively offsetting that sticker cost to make it affordable for the average student and parent? And that's the difference that I think that most students and parents are going to be surprised at and delighted at many schools. So be fearless in looking at schools and then figuring out those dollars on what the average student would get by way of financial aid.
See, I have a 10-year-old, but I'm planning ahead. So this is all very helpful, I'm sure, for students and parents alike. A big thank you for joining us this morning. Robert Franek there, the Princeton Review Editor-in-Chief. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.